Welcome back to the Wildcast podcast. I'm Justin Spears. Here's my guy, Micah Lev. Please subscribe, rate, and comment the Wildcast podcast today and check out all of the Arizona Daily Star sports coverage on Tucson.com and the Wildcaster app. Lev, you recorded a pod last week with Bruce Pascoe talking about Arizona basketball and their roster and how they currently stand right now. Now we're going to be this week on this episode, we're going to be talking a lot of football and also spring sports too. So it's a busy time of year for Arizona Wildcats athletics. The poor men's tennis program, unfortunately, their season came to an end. It was a very, very tough way to go out for the Wildcats because one, they're on the road, they're playing against a really tough Columbia team, and it looked like they were going to get smoked. And then they rallied back and they came all the way down to the very last set of the last match, and Arizona lost to Columbia. Their historic season comes to an end. And then
I'm
you add
pretty
in
sure.
Arizona
Yeah, I'm
baseball,
pretty
softball.
sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure last year they also lost 4-3 in their last match.
Oh, yeah.
I can look that up while we're talking, but it's been just absolute heartbreak for Arizona men's tennis. They've improved so much. They were a moribund program, bottom of the barrel, really, in the Pac-12. Clancy Shields has completely turned them around, but it's really hard to kind of, break into that upper tier.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the challenge that he still faces at this point as he continues to build up that program.
And a sport like tennis, you know who's really good at that? The Ivy League schools. Arizona found that out against Columbia this weekend in New York, which has a $60 million tennis center right on the Hudson River. Apparently, their courts are on top of the buildings. It's high quality stuff they have there at Columbia. And then you also have Arizona softball.
It was 4-2. Sorry, it was 4-2 against number 3 Ohio State the previous year. So, very competitive against a very good. I think Ohio State's number 1 overall this year. So very competitive against very good teams that undoubtedly have, deeper histories in that particular sport than Arizona does.
I'm not sure what the men's tennis landscape looks like in the Big 12, but I'm sure Mr. Brett Yormark, the commissioner, is very happy about adding Arizona in that department. Softball is also beginning postseason. They got to go to the Fayetteville Regional and take on Arkansas. I believe Southeast Missouri State and Villanova is also there. Arizona will play Villanova on Friday. Lev, you've been out to Fayetteville. How's it like out there in Arkansas?
Yeah, it's really nice. Actually, it's hilly, a lot of trees. It's a beautiful little college town. If you're looking to go there from here, both Brian Peterson, my colleague, and I, we flew into Tulsa and drove from Tulsa to Fayetteville. I think it was maybe 2-hour drive at the most. Really pretty easy to get there. Very nice athletic facilities, as you can imagine. SEC country, right? Didn't go into the softball stadium, but the baseball stadium last year was beautiful. The difference for Arizona, I think, between being there and being here is probably those 2 games against UCLA. They had game 3 against UCLA in the regular season. They had a huge lead and they couldn't hold it. And then again in the Pac-12 tournament, had a big lead, couldn't hold it. That's the difference. You win those 2 games, you're probably looking, they could have maybe inched up to the 15 or 16 seed, hosted right here in Tucson at Hillenbrand Stadium. And as we all know, that's a huge advantage in both baseball and softball if you can pull that off. Baseball still has a chance. They are trending up. They're number 14 in the D1 baseball top 25 this morning. How about that?
And baseball, they're rolling right now. And they are just coming off a road series against the Utah Utes. They took that one, which is a very important series because Utah and Arizona right there neck and neck in the Pac-12 race. Arizona takes 2 out of 3 up in Salt Lake City. And now they got another important one in Tucson, Arizona this week. It's the last Pac-12 series of the season and last Pac-12 sporting event ever for Arizona.
In Tucson, yeah.
In Tucson, because they still got the Pac-12 baseball tournament in Phoenix. But In terms of like Pac-12 athletic events in Tucson, this is it coming up Thursday through Saturday, and it's up against Oregon State. And you noted this yesterday, Lev, that Aiden May, the former
Mm-hmm.
Arizona Wildcat, is going to be taking the mound for the Beavers on
Mm-hmm.
Thursday. So
Yep.
Arizona could be clinching the Pac-12 regular season championship and doing it against one of their own. Pretty cool
So
stuff.
look at the storylines here. As you mentioned, it's the last Pac-12 sporting event in Tucson. Pac-12 as we know it. Who knows what the future holds? So you've got that. You've got an ex-Wildcat taking the mound for Oregon State. You've got the two teams that are left in contention for the Pac-12 title, Arizona and Oregon State. Arizona needs one win to clinch the Pac-12 crown. Oregon State needs to sweep. Those are the two scenarios. Pretty simple. Big advantage to winning the Pac-12 regular season title is that all you need to do in the tournament is win one game, and there's no tie-breaking scenario that works against you. If you win one game, you're in the semis. So it's very advantageous. I think it's 3 pods of 3, and I think it's 1, 6, and 9 that are in the pod together. So again, you're opening up against the last entrant into the tournament. There's a lot of incentive to win at least one game this weekend. Hopefully, even do better than that. But a lot of storylines colliding at High Corbett this upcoming week. I think it's going to be a scene out there.
So every single year we go through the cycle of players who emerge as the stars for Arizona. Who are the group of players who are really standing out this season for Arizona baseball?
Well, I mean, Mason White, we knew was going to be a standout, right? Like he had a breakout freshman year, and he's been even better as a sophomore. He's an interesting player. He's kind of that what we call the 3 true outcome player. Like it's like either a home run, a strikeout, or a walk. Almost every at bat, he hits a lot of home runs, and he's right up there among the leaders. By the way, the leader in the Pac-12, possibly the number 1 pick in the draft this upcoming year. Travis Bazzana is the best player in Oregon State, so fans will get a chance to see, possibly the first pick overall on the High Corbett Fields this weekend. So we knew about Mason White, right? The rest of the lineup had a lot of mystery to it. Kind of knew, Emilio Corona and Garen Caulfield were established veterans. Emilio's had some ups and downs this year. He's been better lately. Garen Caulfield had a lot of bad luck last season, but has come through in a big way. He's definitely their most clutch player. Like he's been awesome with runners in scoring position. What you did not know was like how all these young players would do. Sophomore Brendan Summerhill, breakout year. Might be an all Pac-12 player. Looks like a future pro. Andrew Kane, the freshman from Ironwood Ridge High School. I had no expectations for Andrew Kane coming into this season, and he's been great lately. I think he's Wally Pipping Tommy Splain right now, and has probably taken over that first base job. Maddox Mikalakis, another sophomore, has done really well. Richie Morales suffered an injury. Maddox stepped in. I don't think they can kick him out of the lineup at this point. Like if Richie's back now, he plays third. Maddox has to be your DH. He's hitting the ball too hard and too well. Both of their catchers have produced, Adonis Guzman and Blake McDonald. So, some holes that look like they had in the lineup, they've patched them in pretty well with some promising young players. Then, of course, the pitching staff has just been unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's so good that you're worried that someone's going to come in and steal Kevin Vance, and offer him a bunch of money and try to hire him away.
LSU?
That effective. Who knows, man? That was, oh man. Jay Johnson did that. Like, talk about
hated man.
I don't even what's like above being the most hated man in Tucson, which according to some people, he already is. So you go and do that, and better not step foot in this town again. So like Jackson Kent has been the Friday starter. He was kind of an unknown coming into the season. Clark Candiotti was pretty well established as maybe their most high profile transfer. He's been, I think, even better than expected. Cam Walty's been very solid as a number 3 starter. They've mixed and matched with the bullpen, which goes about 9 guys deep. Um, they lead the country, fewest walks per 9 innings. Like, if you had told me that 3-4 years ago, I never would have believed you. Because if Arizona's pitching staff was known for anything, it was like walking a lot of guys, hitting a lot of batters, giving up a lot of runs. Like, Arizona had to score 6, 7, 8 runs to win a game. They don't have to do that anymore. And those are kind of all the reasons that things have come together the way they have. And, one win away from clinching the Pac-12 regular season title for a team that was picked to finish 9th in the league. Yeah, which was the same as the 2016 team. 2016 team was also picked to finish 9th. They went all the way to the final game of the season and almost won the College World Series. So, not saying that that's going to happen again.
But before we talk about U of A football and
Yeah.
the off season, and we also have a few mailbag questions that we're going to address too. You wrote a story, I believe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, pretty much telling Arizona fans, hey, be patient with Chip Hale. Things eventually are going to start trending in that right direction. You saw it back then. What signs did you see that showed you that, Arizona ain't as bad as people are making it out to be?
Yeah. Well, I think they were 10-13 at the time. And let me preface all this by saying, Justin, that I have been wrong about many things. I will be wrong about many things in the future, but I don't know if I've ever been more right about anything than I was about that particular thing. They've arguably even exceeded my own expectations. I didn't think they'd be as good as they are this year, probably because the pitching has been better than anyone thought. But okay, the reasons why I was advocating for patience. Number one, they played a really, really tough schedule. If you look at the non-conference strength of schedule, according to certain websites, toughest in the country this year, number one ranking in non-con. So they played a bunch of road games early in the season, which they almost never do. So like normally they would fatten up on teams from the Midwest or the Northeast coming into Tucson, teams that maybe couldn't practice outside at all before they came out here, and they'd pile up a bunch of wins, but they wouldn't really mean that much. So they were losing close games to really good teams. They also had a really young lineup, and I just knew that it was going to take some time for those players to settle in and feel comfortable in college baseball. So that was kind of the second factor. And then people are the biggest criticism of Chip, I think, is that he had no background in recruiting, right? Like, he'd been in professional baseball, he's never recruited a day in his life. Like, look at this class ranking and that class ranking. Well, like, their 24 and 25 classes are, I think, top 35 in the country according to Perfect Game, which is pretty good. And the one that has been disparaged the most, which I think was the 23 class, is ranked like maybe 96th in the country. And it's just a small class. Okay. That's number one. And number two, like, as we all know, I mean, those rankings are imperfect at best, right? I mean, there's a lot of projections in there. It's that 23 class, ranked 95th by Perfect Game. But you know who's in that class? Andrew Kane. For starters, Easton Bryfogel's in that class. And, before he got hurt, he looked like a stud, future star in this league. He should be back this weekend. That class also included Blake Wolters, who ended up signing with the Royals for like almost $3 million as a second round pick. It's like they identified a good player. It just, sometimes those guys don't make it to campus. So those are all the reasons that I thought people needed to kind of give it a little bit of time. Right. I think I also pointed out that Arizona did not make the tournament in Jay Johnson's third and fourth seasons. And there was a lot of talk like on social media about, oh, this is the third year. This is when things should take off. Well, they hadn't taken off yet, but they sure have now.
Yeah. Because by the point you're in year 3, those are all your guys.
Correct. Yes. I think there are two players left from the Jay Johnson era at this point. Well, I shouldn't say, maybe like sort of like 2.5, like two guys who actually played for Jay. Tommy Splane was also recruited by Jay, but Trevor Long and Dawson Nets, couple relief pitchers, are the only ones left, who I think they both started here in 2020. So yeah, I understand. And it was early in the season. They played a really tough schedule. They were a young lineup. They just needed some time to settle in. The pitching has been a constant throughout, and now it's all clicking and coming together.
All right, now let's transition over to Arizona Wildcats football. The offseason is officially in full swing. Arizona, they could still add guys from the transfer portal just because the transfer portal period ended, in April. It doesn't mean that Arizona isn't able to add players from the portal. Players are still there. They can still go wherever they want to. All players need to do is just get into that transfer portal. But, when Brent Brennan was first hired by Arizona, Arizona had two major challenges ahead of them. One, it was the transfer portal period after Jed Fish had left for Washington. Number two, the spring transfer portal period, which happened right in the middle of spring practice. Like Arizona had to go the last, week and a half, 2 weeks dealing with the transfer portal and wondering who's here, who's not, who's going to go. So every single day from the time that it opened till the spring game, we were sitting there taking attendance, seeing who's here, who's not. And it's just a very messy situation for not just Arizona, just everyone dealing with a coaching change, dealing with the spring portal period. There, there's no perfect answer as to figure out, as to why the calendar isn't better. I wish it was better. They're trying to figure out all the different options and paths that they could take to make things better. But for right now, this is what Arizona has to deal with. And the fact that we are sitting here in the middle of May talking about, yeah, Arizona, they got a roster that makes them a surefire top 25 team. Are we sitting here saying that they're going to be the favorite to win the Big 12? No, but I like their chances, Lev. And considering, where the program was at once Jed Fish left, things could be a whole lot worse. And the fact that it's not, I think it says a lot to Brent Brennan and the culture that he's putting in here. But I also think it says a lot about these players led by Noah Fafita and Tetero McMillan.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear Brent Brennan's comments at the Wildcat Welcome Tour stop the other day over at Union Public House on the Northwest Side. He said that he spent Tuesday evening sitting by the pool calling players to thank them for
Thank
staying.
them. Think about
Yeah,
that.
think about that. Isn't
Thank you for
isn't
not
that bizarre?
transferring.
Yeah, yeah. There's kind of a new phenomenon in college football and college basketball to a degree too, and that's like if you don't leave, like sort of announcing that you're staying or so and so has withdrawn from the transfer portal, like you're like a hero.
Mm-hmm.
You're like a made man or woman if you do that, right? Like think about how fans will perceive someone like Noah Fafita, Tetero McMillan, Jonas Sabanaya, Takario Davis for staying. Like I think I wrote it at the time when Noah and T Mac made their announcement. Like these guys they're legends. Like it doesn't even really matter that much if they play well, moving forward. The fact that they decided to stay at Arizona, they showed their loyalty to this place, this university, this town. I mean, that means so much to the fans. As for like the actual roster itself, heading into 2024, I like what they've done.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I really like what they've done, and they've done it sort of like it's been kind of under the radar. Like there's no big name quarterbacks. There's like not that like no big name running backs. But what do they have, Justin? Jonah Rodriguez, offensive tackle, transferring from San Diego State. Michael Wooten, offensive tackle, transferring from Oregon. Jara Anderson, I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Defensive lineman, transferring from Memphis. Chase Kennedy, defensive end, transferring from Utah. We always say on this podcast, starts up front, right?
Yep.
You gotta have linemen, and they lost a lot of linemen to the transfer portal to graduation, and I think they're doing a pretty good job of trying to address that, bringing in guys who have projectable frames. I mean, you take a chance on players with that pedigree,
Yep.
right? and they're doing that. They seem to very specifically targeted linemen in this transfer portal cycle, and I think it's really smart.
I'm looking at the guys that they had in spring, and there's a lot of promising pieces up front on that defensive line. Number one, Trey Smith, the edge rusher from San Jose State. I have heard a lot of incredible reviews of this guy in practice, and we've seen him in camp. Seems like a guy who's very quick off the ball, can do a lot of things. He's athletic, he's quick, he's fast, got great hands. I look to him. I look as him being the next Taylor Upshaw in the sense that he's going to lead the team in sacks, and he's going to be a veteran leader out there that just does a little bit of everything very well. Um, I'm looking at Chuba Ma'ai, the big defensive tackle from UC Davis. He had to lose a little bit of weight, came in like closer to 400 pounds than 300 pounds. And now he is closer to 300 and looks very quick for his size. Like, don't let his big old belly fool you. That man can move, and he can figure out a way to kind of torque his body and get skinny and get between blockers. So I really look for Chuba Ma'ai to make an impact for Arizona this year. And plus his size, like that's the kind of size that you need up front to occupy blockers and go to the quarterback. And then, like you said, Lev, the guys that they're bringing in, Jar Anderson has the ideal body type. Chase Kennedy, while he put up underwhelming stats at Utah, has still played college football for the last few years and is a guy who's got some experience. Or I think he's played college football for 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, at Utah, and he's from the Dallas area. I really like what they're bringing in. And also Kayvon Darton, too, the guy from Syracuse who signed with them in the spring and decided to not join the team until the summer. There's just a lot of unknowns, but you know who was an unknown last year? Big Bill Norton. And he ended up becoming a thing. Isaiah Ward was an unknown throughout all of spring, didn't even crack the 2 deep, and became Arizona's starting edge rusher. So,
Ty Younglele,
Tai Uiagalelei,
right?
who's going to be
Another one.
starting. So,
Yep.
a lot of pieces. Now, is there one position group that concerns you right now, Lev?
Well,
Running back?
No, I don't think so. I think you can find running backs. Um, I think Speedy Luke is on the brink of a breakout season. I don't know exactly what form that's going to take. I don't think he's a 20 carry a game guy, but get him 10 to 12 touches, screen passes, jet sweeps, handful of conventional runs, maybe use him in the return game. I liked what I saw from Brandon Johnson during spring. I think he's promising. I don't know what's going on with. I know that they had Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and then he decommitted, and then he committed to Ole Miss. But I don't know if he's with that. I wouldn't. I say there's a non-zero chance he could be back here. That thing is still kind of up in the air. But if it's not him, I'm sure they'll bring in somebody else, right? So I think they'll be okay at running back. The position that kind of concerns me a little bit, and it depends on how they decide to sort of deploy the personnel, is that second cornerback spot. You've got Javian Celestine over there. You got John O'Price, a guy that they brought in, but it could end up being Traden Stukes. Traden Stukes had an outstanding year as a nickel. He's got really good size. He's physical. There are reasons that he projected well to that position. But the best 5 might feature Traden on the outside at corner and Genesis Smith as one of those, either one of the 2 safeties or in that nickel position. So that's one of the things that I'm really keeping an eye on, once training camp starts up again, is how they decide to deploy the secondary. I will say, like, the 4 returning guys, like watching them operate under Dwayne Aquina, it's like they're all connected, right? Like the way that they move, the way that they communicate, like it's really fun to watch. If people haven't checked out my story yet that I did about, I called it Maldonado's Mad Dash, in the Alamo Bowl, you want to read that one, because it's like everyone who was involved in the play broke down everything that happened, and you really get a sense of the teamwork that goes into a play like that, and the team and how that's kind of carrying over into what they've got going. But you need 5, right? It's a 5 starting spots, not 4. So they need to figure out, to me, like what that 5th position is going to be.
And the cool thing about Dwayne Aquina is that you play defensive back for him. You don't play cornerback. You don't play nickel or star, as they're calling it in Arizona's defense. You don't play safety. Of course, when you're out on the field, you're going to have your role in one of those positions, but you are trained every single day to be a defensive back. And that was actually one thing that Dwayne Aquina came in and kind of had a nip in the bud is the different film sessions that they were having as defensive backs groups. It was like the safeties would go in and watch film together and kind of do their own thing. And the corners would go in and watch film and they would also do their own thing. And then halfway through the year, Dwayne Aquina was like, why are we doing this? It seems like we're stepping on each other a little too much. There's a lot of overlap. Like, let's just all get all these guys in the room together and let's teach them like defensive backs. And ever since that happened, the DBs have really starting to take off. And I think it's been really beneficial for guys like Gunnar Maldonado and Dalton Johnson, because once upon a time, Gunnar was struggling. And I remember going on Twitter, and Arizona fans, they did not like Gunnar Maldonado. They said that he was the worst defender that Arizona had. Why is he out there? And I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone on that defense that improved more than Gunnar Maldonado did over the course of last season.
Yeah, Dwayne Aquina is big on one room. He's like, I've always had one room. Why don't we have one room? And now they have one room, and it shows in the way that they play. So yeah, a great improvement. That's what Brent Brennan has talked about. Like, we are going to be a developmental program, which I think that's the lane that Arizona should be in. And Dwayne Aquina has been one of the best developers of defensive backs that this sport has seen in the last 30 years.
Yep.
Right? Like, indisputably. So he's a great guy to have in that particular position, with Brett Arcee as kind of his right-hand man.
His protege.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other positions that concern me.
Punter.
I think that was the way that you punter. Yeah. They definitely need to figure out the punter situation. They have a kicker coming in. Wouldn't surprise me if they added another punter as well to just kind of beef up the competition there. Could Tyler Luke do both? I don't think it's like inconceivable. It's a lot to ask. It's not quite the same as Travis Hunter playing like 80 snaps, at cornerback and wide receiver, but still, it's, you don't want to tax the guy's leg by asking him to do that. You do see it probably, half a dozen instances or so across the country where the guy does both. So that is a position, that second linebacker spot still to be sorted out. But I liked what I saw from Tay Brown during spring. Like, it seemed to me like he was starting to figure it out. Like, you'd see certain plays where he would just go, he would, I think that shoot his gun is the term that they like to use.
Yep.
Like, he would see it and he would attack.
Yep.
So that was a promising sign. To me, it seems like they've kind of figured out a role for Justin Flo, that he's gonna be like a designated pass rusher for the most part, which we've talked about many times on the podcast and elsewhere. That seems like a good role for him, where he can utilize his athleticism to its best effect. We talked about the defensive line. They're trying to address that. It is difficult to replace the guys that they ended up losing. It does seem like this staff advocates using a lot of guys, right? Coach Siamalu, Brent Brennan said, like, don't even pay attention to what the positions are. Siamalu said himself, like, he wants to use like at least 8, maybe more. You have to have quality. You can't just put guys out there, but it seems like they're going to continue to do that, which was a huge reason the defense overall was good last year. Wide receiver, that third wide receiver position is a little bit, up for grabs, but it's plenty of talent there, right? If there's anything that concerns me the most, Justin, as we head into the summer here, it's not necessarily like lack of depth at a certain position. It's not activity or inactivity in the transfer portal, it's probably T-Mac's foot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you explain to people like what happened and what we know
Yeah.
about that whole deal?
The Saturday before the spring game, T-Mac was in a one-on-one drill with Takario Davis, and watching those two go at it in practice it's so fun. I mean, you're watching the best receiver in college football, in my opinion, go up against arguably the best cornerback in college football in Takario Davis. So you're seeing these two giants going up against each other every single rep in practice, and they got tangled up. They both fell down. T-Mac got up, limped off the field, limped to the locker room, and from that point forward, we've only seen T-Mac in a boot and getting around in a little like one-legged knee scooter. And so I actually saw a video that I think Blair Vaughn, Arizona football staffer, posted. I don't know how old this video is. I think maybe it happened before the injury of him doing this like crazy one-handed catch in the facility. I wouldn't imagine he's doing that right now after his foot deal. But Brent Brennan said he had a little operation and is going to miss a little bit of time, but he's expected to be back for preseason training camp. And when I hear expected to be back for preseason training camp, I'm like, well, that's not a 100%, Brent. That's not like too promising, but we'll see.
Yeah, it just worries me whenever you're talking about a foot injury with a wide receiver, running back, defensive back. I mean, it's so important. All kinds of little things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
We all remember the Jamari Joyner fiasco. Like he played like almost a whole season with a broken foot. Then he thought he got it fixed and they didn't do a good job with the surgery and he had to have the surgery again. And he's basically like never the same player. You know, I have no idea exactly what T-Mac's injury is, what type of like fracture or situation that he suffered in his foot. The fact that they addressed it so quickly was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like a few days later, oh yeah, he had a procedure already. I'm like, okay, that was fast. They must have known what it was. He is an elite athlete, and elite athletes, probably recover from injuries better than like you or I would. I don't mean to disparage your athleticism, Justin. You were a varsity football player here in the Tucson area.
I never had the makings of a varsity athlete, as they say in The Sopranos.
So anyway, it worries me, and I'm not going to not be worried about it until I see T-Mac back on the practice field doing his thing and looking like his usual self. So that is just sort of this, it's not a huge dark cloud. It's more like the monsoon. Like it just kind of sneaks in once a day or so. I think about it,
You think about monsoon?
Well, I mean, in summer, I'm just saying, in summer, right, in Tucson, like the monsoon comes in at a certain point in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be like once a day or so when I'm thinking about Arizona football where I'm like, oh man, what's up with T-Mac? So it's kind of like that. It's not a black cloud that's hovering over the program. It just comes in occasionally. Gives me pause.
Every day, Lev thinks about T-Mac's feet. It's like Rex Ryan. All right. Before we get out of here, I do want to bring up a couple of mailbag questions. Let's answer. This one comes in from Olive520. If you can't scramble like a madman in the new NCAA football game, do you consider it a failure? Because I do. Well, I mean, you got to make it realistic. You can't go full Michael Vick 2004 Madden in this game. Unfortunately, Arizona doesn't have Khalil Tate, so you can't run all over like he did at Arizona. Were you a big scrambler in Madden or / NCAA football, or were you by the book? I'm just gonna run the play.
So I started playing Madden again a couple years ago when I bought the game for my son and was like, oh wait, this is still great. I had kind of stopped for about 8 or 9 years. I currently have an offense that calls for a lot of rollouts, and I do end up running with the quarterback quite a bit. It's probably mainly because I struggle to read the full field, and if I can cut the field in half, it just makes it a lot easier to read the defense. But man, I don't think. Look, man, it's not a prereq. You don't have to like run the option or whatever to have a good offense or to enjoy yourself in NCAA football. Like if you want to take Arizona, like Noah Fafita is like he's an okay scrambler, but he's really a pocket passer.
Yeah.
So if that's going to be your team, like you better get used to being able to operate from the pocket, unless you want to just completely blow up everything and change your scheme and who your quarterback is. But he's probably going to be a pretty highly rated player in this game, right? And maybe we'll do a whole episode where we kind of try to figure out what the ratings are. I'm sure T-Mac will be the highest rated player somewhere in the 90s, but Noah will probably be like, I don't know, mid 80s or so on the scale of 99 being the best. It's a very strong arm, very accurate as well. Awareness is always an important category for quarterbacks, and I think he should have a very high awareness rating as well because he's such a savvy and smart player, but he's not really a scrambler. So, like I said, if Arizona's your team, you better learn how to operate from the pocket.
Let's say you get the game, you fired up, you got Arizona versus whoever. You're playing as Arizona.
Okay.
What is the first play that you call?
Probably some sort of play action.
Play action vertical? Throw T to T-Mac?
It depends. Probably, try to hit T. Probably a play action, some sort of crossing route to T-Mac. Yeah.
That's a pretty good play.
Yeah. I'd start shotgun play action with maybe couple crossers, one a little deeper than the other. And I'm not sure which one is T-Mac between those two, but he's probably the deeper one, and with Montana Lemonius Craig coming across the middle and whoever springs open.
I think probably the first matchup for Arizona fans is it Washington? Are they going to take out all their frustration on Jed at Washington? They're gonna have Arizona play UW, and they're gonna smoke them by like 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, I don't. It's like people. One of the things I like about these video games is there's any number of different ways you can play. You can do a career mode, like as one guy. You can take over a program, which I think is what most people are going to want to do, right? With college football, something people like to do, of course, is take like an underdog program and try to build them up through recruiting. I guess I'm sure the transfer portal will be part of the deal in this game because that's part of college football now. I don't know if like schools are going to have NIL allotments, like if that's going to be a factor in securing talent. But yeah, I don't know if you're just like, let's see how the game plays. Let's play an exhibition game. I think Arizona versus Washington is going to be very popular.
Can I get Humberto Lopez to be part of this game? Could he?
Owner mode.
Owner mode. I love it. All right. This one comes in from Zona Cat. Zona Cat fan 44. Grayson Stovall is a name that I have not heard much about. What do you view his role being this upcoming season? Well, he's the backup center. He's going to be Josh Baker's understudy, has been for the last couple of years, loves being here at the U of A. And I think that eventually when his time comes, he will be ready. But Arizona, they got a lot of great young up-and-coming offensive linemen. Grayson Stovall is one of them. One of many Chandler Hamilton guys on the team right now.
Is Josh Baker a senior?
Yes, this is last year.
Okay, so they're be patient, bide your time. It's a fun fact about Grayson Stovall.
What's that?
He was the first commit in the class of 2022.
Oh yeah, the class with T-Mac and Noah.
Yeah, I mean the class that kind of changed the fortunes of Arizona football. So he was a pioneer in that regard. Good program guy for sure. Hey, you're always one snap away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think they feel pretty good about him if they have to put him in at center. But Josh Baker's he's been a kind of a pillar.
Yeah.
In the middle of that offensive line, he's been durable. He's not going anywhere, but if he gets hurt, I think Grayson is next in line. Depth is critical. It's going to be even more critical as these teams play more games, right? If you get into, let's say Arizona has a great season that we all hope that they will have, and they play in the Big 12 championship game. So that's game 13. And then they make it to the college football playoff. That's game 14. And let's say they win a game. Then that's game 5. Like, they're playing more games than any Arizona team has ever played before. So you need guys like Grayson Stovall to provide quality depth.
You're one snap away, even if you're the guy who's snapping the football. Now, Josh Baker, I think this guy should be getting a little bit more love as an NFL prospect just because of his history of playing multiple positions. Not only was he a center, I didn't even think I totally forgot about this until I wrote a story on him early in the spring. He played guard his I think second year with the program in 2021 while Josh McCauley played center. So he's got a lot of center guard experience. I haven't heard too much about Josh Baker being an NFL prospect when you think about the guys who could go next year, but I think he certainly could be a day 3 guy for sure. All right, Lev, this is one last one. This is a basketball one.
No,
Comes from
okay.
Garrett Lutz. Do you anticipate Anthony Del Orso to contend for any minutes, or is he considered more of a depth piece at this point? I don't envision him starting, but I mean, you got a guy who was at Campbell and he was putting up nearly 20 points per game. You have that coming off your bench. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Cedric Henderson from a couple of years ago, a guy who they also got from Campbell, but this guy is a way better scorer. He's got a bigger bag, as they say, for basketball players. And having that guy coming off the bench, I mean, heck, Arizona could be in a position to where Carter Bryant is coming off the bench. A McDonald's 5-star All-American could potentially be a bench player for the Wildcats. So I think Arizona is loaded right now. I think, especially if Caleb Love comes back, they are going to have a team that is certainly in position to contend for not only a Final Four, but a championship. But this Anthony Del Orso guy, great shooter, and also a multi-level scorer too. Not only is he a decent 3-point shooter, but he's also a great free throw shooter too, and has a knack for drawing contact and getting to the free throw line. So he could beat you in multiple ways.
Look, never seen him play, so can't really say exactly what his game looks like, but we know what the numbers are. He shot 38% from 3 last year. So
Pretty good.
if you can shoot that well from beyond the arc, there's a place for you in a rotation. Also worth remembering about Cedric Henderson, he came off the bench, if I recall, in his 1 year until Tommy Lloyd decided to switch up the lineup, and he moved Pelle Larsson out of the starting lineup into the 6-man role, and he put Cedric Henderson in the lineup, and then everything clicked for that team from that point forward. That was like a critical move that just sort of changed the chemistry of that particular team. So heck, man, if he can have 75% of the impact that Cedric Henderson had here, you're talking about a pretty good player. Like I said, if you can shoot, you've got value, right?
Yep.
If you're an adequate defender and you can shoot the basketball, you can find a place in a rotation. I think that's what we're looking at here, a rotational player. Still trying to kind of sort out some of the last pieces of the roster. Caleb Love, Jaden Bradley, KJ Lewis, are they going in the draft? Are they coming back? That obviously changes a lot. I think most people expect KJ Lewis and Jaden Bradley to return. And if they do, Arizona is going to be a dynamic team again in 2024-25. Even going to the Big 12, they're going to have so much athleticism, so many wings.
Yeah.
On this team. I think they're going to be really, really fun to watch and potentially a really excellent defensive team, because both of those guys that I just mentioned, they are dogs on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and you got Toby Awaka from Tennessee.
Yeah. He has a great rebounding rate when he stays on the court. That's one of the things Bruce reminded me of in the last podcast. He sometimes gets into foul trouble. And I think Mo Crevis is just sort of scratching the surface too, of what he can be. So very promising, but it obviously looks a lot better if you've got KJ and Jaden in the fold as opposed to in the draft.
I think Caleb Love, though, is kind of the cherry on top because I think Jaden and KJ, they're coming back. I think. Or Jaden for sure is coming back. KJ Lewis, I don't know.
I mean,
You never know, but I
you do never
imagine,
know. It's like, do you want to, okay, if you're KJ Lewis, you have an NBA frame,
yeah,
right? You could probably step in and be a 3-and-D guy fairly soon. But do you want to be like the 28th pick in the draft or do you want to be like the 8th pick in the draft?
yeah,
A lot more money when you're the 8th pick in the draft. There's a lot more opportunity when you're the 8th pick in the draft. I look at Dalen Terry as an example. You know, he's kind of been stuck on the bench for 2 years now with the Bulls. You know, it's
yeah.
kind of like that weird kind of basketball limbo. You know, it's like I don't know how advantageous it is for guys to just sort of ride the pine in the NBA for their first few years and not really get a lot of opportunities. Whereas in college, it's kind of like with quarterbacks. You know, I feel like you can't get, the more game reps you get, the better. You can't get enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reason why someone like Bo Nix ends up as a first round pick. It's like, hey, this guy started like 60 games in college or whatever it is. Like, if we learned anything over the years in the inexact science that is player drafting, it's like experience at quarterback matters. And if you're a basketball player who's trying to develop his game like KJ Lewis, it probably benefits you to come back to Arizona, be a featured piece of the offense, and develop your skill set before you go to the next level.
And making money off name, image, and likeness is a huge factor in this whole equation because when the NBA G League decided to add the G League Ignite, they wanted to give kids a path to get developed, get ready for the NBA, and then you can get drafted after spending a year in the G League. You can make your money and then go play pro. Where NIL, it's getting these kids the same amount of money as they're making at the G League level. They're also playing against pretty much similar high quality talent. And you're also getting an education on top of that too. So to me, like with NIL being introduced into college athletics, it has ruined the G League model. And I don't know if you've seen this, Lev, but the G League Ignite, it will no longer exist after this year because NIL plays a huge part in that.
Yeah, for the chorus of people who have been saying that NIL is ruining college sports, I understand what you're saying. I really think that it's more so the unlimited transfer portal that's kind of a little bit distasteful at times. But in terms of NIL itself, that is leading to more players staying in college.
Yeah.
Like college football was a better sport last year because so many guys came back, right? This last draft, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but huge reduction in the number of early entrants, underclassmen going into the draft.
Yep.
You know, all these guys at Ohio State who normally would leave, they're back, and Ohio State looks like a juggernaut this year. That's the positive offshoot of NIL, is that it's changed the calculus. It's created a competitive marketplace to the pros, and it's compelling guys to return who otherwise might not have. So
Yep.
in that sense, college sports and college fans are benefiting.
Absolutely. All right, Lev, anything else we got to address before we get out of here?
I don't think so. I'm going to be out at High Corbett Thursday for potentially the clinching game. And if they don't win, I'll be back there on Friday. I will definitely be there on Saturday as well for the final Pac-12 regular season sporting event in Tucson. Then I'm also going to be heading up to Scottsdale next week for the Pac-12 baseball tournament, which is kind of the last conference sporting event of any kind before whatever happens next. So I don't know. It's going to be a weird scene up there in Scottsdale for sure, with the Pac-12 kind of riding off into the sunset.
It's like a last dance kind of.
Yeah, right.
Pac-12.
Yeah,
Man,
totally.
A lot of last.
Totally, except that it's a very like awkward, like middle school type of dance, you know, as opposed to like, yes, the
Everyone's
kids
up
are
against the wall.
like this far. Yeah, all the kids, yeah, the girls on one side, the boys on the other. And if anyone is dancing, they're kind of like about 3 feet away from each other, like stiffly moving around. That's the Pac-12 version of The Last Dance.
And that'll do it for this episode of the Wildcast podcast. That's Michael Lev. Check out his columns and his great stories on Tucson.com, the Wildcaster app. And for all of our offseason coverage regarding Arizona football, the website, the app that I just mentioned, go there. And also check us out on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And please download the Wildcaster app today. Thanks for watching and listening.